let us look, for instance, at nutrition. Certainly, spiritual study is appropriate. There is great wisdom that has been captured in text. And one of the great developments of humankind is the writing of that wisdom so that others can read and absorb that wisdom. And certainly we have within Scripture, we have great wisdom. And I want you to be real, I want to be real clear, and I want you to understand that while I may be a critic of the overzealous focus on Scripture, I still consider Scripture to be a very substantial foundation or a very substantial vessel of wisdom. And we can pull from Scripture great wisdom. One of those pieces of wisdom is found here in Matthew 22:36-40. Pharisees said, "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" And Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." And you've heard me talk about this passage over and over and over and over and over again. And I hope that you have memorized this by now. Probably you have. But I also hope that you understand that this is truly the protein of our spiritual health system. This understanding of love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself, that is the nutrition, that's the basis of the nutrition of a strong spiritual health. So as we understand this, it's not about loving God out there and trying to figure out what kind of personality that God is out there, because that's not where God is. God is all. God is here. And in fact, as Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven, that is the residence of God, the kingdom of heaven is within you or in the midst of you. The kingdom of heaven is within you. So if you understand that the kingdom of heaven is within you and you love God with all your heart, you are truly loving that which emanates from you. Okay? Now one could say that that is loving yourself. Oh, well, gosh, that's an interesting thing, because in the second passage, it references that. This is like the greatest of the first commandments. The second, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You shall love your neighbor as yourself because your neighbor is yourself. Your neighbor is the divinity that is within you. The essence of your neighbor is the harbor of the Christ. And when you love God with all your heart, you can't help but love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is the harbor of the kingdom of heaven, just like you are. So loving God requires, in this context, loving God requires that you love your neighbors. And one could say that if you love your neighbors unconditionally, what you're doing is you're loving all of creation. You're loving it all. You're loving God as all. So this is a primary element of spiritual wisdom. Now, as we accept this, we recognize that there is a practice that we have come up with, and it's in the fourth principle of unity, of prayer. Prayer is not about changing the conditions of the world. While, in fact, when we have our gathering here and we have our time for sharing our prayers and affirmations, our celebrations and our challenges, that we often come to an expression of a request for prayer to change the conditions of the world. But I would like you to change the conditions specifically of your life. But I would like you to think about that a little bit differently. Think about it from a standpoint of cause and effect. If we use prayer as a means of changing our consciousness, then the conditions of our life will either change or our response to the conditions of our life will change. One of those two. And in fact, if we focus on changing our response to the conditions of our life through prayer, then the conditions themselves will not be nearly as relevant or important. Okay? So loving God with all your heart, loving your neighbor as yourself, and realizing that that wellspring of love arises within you, and carrying that then into your prayer practice to realize that prayer is not about changing conditions, but about changing our response to the conditions through changing our consciousness, then we can indeed use this piece of nutrition very effectively. We can make it the foundation, the lifeblood of our spiritual practices. So this process of prayer is one that allows us to change our consciousness. And you've heard me quote before the prayer of willingness. The prayer of willingness is also an important part of this practice. Not the prayer itself, but rather the concepts of the prayer. And the prayer of willingness offers this: let my heart be the vessel of God's love. We start there. We let our heart be the vessel of God's love. As we recognize that there is love that streams forth from us, we are recognizing it, we are acknowledging it. That's the letting of this. It's not about permitting love to come in, because love is already here if we are willing to recognize it, know it again. Let my thoughts be the blossom of God's love. Now we allow this love that is resident in our hearts to be a transformative agent of our thoughts, allowing the love to move through and fertilize our thoughts, okay? So that our thoughts are really a blossom of that love of God. And let my words be the expression of God's love, because our words come from our thoughts. And if our thoughts are an expression, are the blossom of God's love, then our words are going to be the expression of that. And moving from that, our actions will be the fulfillment of God's love. So as we look at this, we're looking at love arising, transforming, expressing, and fulfilling. And that process is one that it's not resident in this prayer, but it is expressed in this prayer. So this prayer then gives us a guide of how we encounter our life. So, nutrition. We need to nurture our thoughts, because our thoughts are the basis of all that we say and do. Exercise. Exercise is an important aspect of our spiritual growth. You know, just like in the world, if you want to build a strong body, you want to build a healthy body, you need to lay down the magazines on exercise, and you need to get off the couch. You need to get out there, and you need to walk. You need to ride a bike. You need to exercise. You need to lift weights. You need to be expressing and exercising your body. Well, likewise, it is with our spiritual health. When we have, when we look upon the individuals that use Scripture to the excess, what they're doing is they're saying that my life today is dependent upon the wisdom that was expressed 1,500 years ago. Now, how reasonable is that? We have a far different understanding of our reality today. We have a far different understanding of our health, our body. We have a far different understanding of the cosmos. We have a far different understanding of the dynamics of our culture and of the interaction and interdependence of the various cultures. We have an understanding that far exceeds the understanding of reality that was present back in the 4th century when our Scripture was frozen. So it is important for us to realize that if we are going to exercise appropriately, that we need to also bring in wisdom from the present. Well, exercise, getting off the couch. We understand love God with all your heart. We understand love your neighbor as yourself. But what's the exercise there? Tell me. What's the exercise? Showing it. How do you show it?
Community
service. Service. Selfless service. Serving others. As you love your neighbor as yourself, show it. Demonstrate it. Get out there and allow yourself to be the tool for the enhancement of other people's lives. It is an appropriate exercise. And we don't build huge triceps and biceps, but rather we build a strong and live spiritual body by expressing our love for each other as service. So if we want to practice our spiritual health, if we want to exercise our spiritual health, be willing to serve. Oh, you can do other things, but be willing to serve. Boosting our immunity. What about boosting our immunity? What is it about immunity that is important for us to understand? In the physical world, our immune system keeps the invasion of the infections, bacterial and viral, and fungal, from taking over the processes of our physical body. Well, likewise, we have the opportunity to be infected by what? We have the opportunity to be infected by the thoughts of separation. The thoughts of separation are the major killer of our spiritual health. The infection of this idea that we are separate from one another, we need to grab for all the gusto we can before someone else grabs it. That is a major infection that can overwhelm us. It can lead us to a 70-year, 80-year, 90-year ensconced in fear. Our spiritual health requires that we be fearless. Our spiritual health requires that we be unconditional love. And the thing that is going to detract from that unconditional love is if we allow the infection of fear to occur. And the infection of fear can be thwarted by several things. Number one is allow yourself to be used. Allow yourself to be used for the enhancement of others. Not based upon some contract that you have. I'll do this if you'll do that. Or I'll love you if you'll love me. But rather allow yourself to be the expression of unconditional love. And as you do that, that's like boosting with vitamin C, right? It allows you to address any situation, any condition, any relationship in a way that is healthful, that is helpful. There is an opportunity for each and every one of us in each and every moment, in each and every relationship, to be the expression of unconditional love. And this is a difficult one for me, particularly when I turn on the news. But being an expression of unconditional love in each and every one of your personal relationships is an important aspect of a strong immune system. Being aware of the spiritual principles that guide us, that direct our lives, is an important part of our immune system. But in the essence of it, I don't have the quote here, but in the essence of it is what Paul offered us in Colossians 1, verse 27. The Christ in you, your hope of glory. Realizing the Christ in you, realizing that you are the harbor of the Christ, is the number one, in my opinion, the number one antidote for any echo infection of separation. So, realizing our divinity is really what this immune system, this boosted immune system, will do for us. And realizing our divinity allows us to step out of our comfort zone, to step down into the muck of the world, and realize that the muck of the world is not going to infect us. It's not going to detract from our health, but rather it is going to be part of our exercise to build a strong spiritual constitution. Well, in the physical world, we need sleep. And in the spiritual world, we need sleep. In the physical world, we need rest to allow ourselves to rejuvenate, to allow ourselves to be purged of the acidic process or the acidic output of our cellular processes, to be flushed and excreted. In the spiritual world, meditation is our rest. Meditation allows us to let go and let God. Let go of all the stuff that's out there and allow the infusion of God to come within us. You see, God is already here and now. It's just a matter of whether or not we accept and allow that presence within our consciousness. And as we meditate, as we practice the quietude of meditation, we are nurtured, we are healed, we are transformed. And that practice of meditation, whether it's sitting in meditation for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 3 hours, whatever your practice of meditation is that works for you, great, practice it. I frankly enjoy the micro meditations. The micro meditations are those meditations where in the breath you can realize God's presence. In the breath you can accept and appreciate the love that is offered to you unconditionally. In the breath you are able to express that love to the moment unconditionally. And those micro meditations are a very powerful means of resetting your consciousness in the instant so that you can encounter a challenging relationship or you can encounter a challenging condition with aplomb, with fearlessness, because you have allowed the awareness of love to infuse you. Rest. So as we look once again at the 5 principles, come back. How do I get out of there? Okay, all right. Just have to press a different button. So, good nutrition, appropriate exercise, strong immune system, and rest. Those are the prescriptions for a strong, healthy spiritual life. And allowing this moment to unfold without any expectations. Allowing this quiet time to be a time of nurturing. We open ourselves up to the inflow of love. We invite God's presence into our consciousness, into our awareness. We allow God's love to infuse us. To nurture us. To heal us. Divine love, unconditional love, is ours for the asking. No payment is appropriate or even possible. Only the open invitation to allow God's love to move through us. Feel that. Allow that to expand to all of your consciousness. Allow it to illuminate the dark corners where hate and fear reside. Allow it to nurture you, to lift you, to transform you. And to receive its full benefit, allow it to flow from you without exception, without direction. Let it flow into the moment. And notice how your moment is transformed. Without expectation, just observe. How has my life in this last minute been changed? Realize that this is a choice that is always available to us in every moment, in every hour, in every day, week, month, and year. We can build our life to be that expression of unconditional love. It's a practice. Perfection is not necessary. But this moment, let us dedicate ourselves to be the expression of love in this moment. And in that awareness, let us come back into this time and space, sharing the words of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth take an offering for unity now. As we take our offerings in our hands, let us bless them with this offering statement. Together, please. Divine love in me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love because I trust in God. And once again, Trinity de Mask in irreverence.